Thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille Show. A lot we're going to cover on today's program as we still navigate a news cycle that has been consuming for many Charlottesvillians, Albemarle Countyans, and Central Virginians alike. Today's program, I'm going to ask some very straightforward questions. Some may make you uncomfortable. But we spare no punches on this program. Who was the more dangerous man to the Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Central Virginia community? Nyeem Hill, who's out on the lam right now, who has a lengthy criminal history, or Justin Barbour, who is dead. Crozet, alleged killer. I'm going to ask this question. Was Nyeem Hill's criminal history enough to cause a lockdown of the University of Virginia, a shelter in place of the Lewis Mountain neighborhood, and a shelter in place of many of the schools in this area? Was there an overreaction based on Nyeem Hill's criminal history? I have a feeling Judah Wickower and I are going to disagree on that topic. I want to talk on today's program this question. Does Craig Kent's resignation by Jim Ryan time and grace? Craig Kent is the first fall guy here. The Melina Kibbe, I think, is going to be the second fall person here. She's... We'll get to her background here in a matter of moments. Does this buy Jim Ryan grace? That topic on today's show. I also want to talk on the program. Albemarle County has just slipped a proposed, the county executive, Jeff Richardson, has just kind of slid under the radar while we've been consumed with everything else. A 4-cent real estate tax increase for fiscal year 2026. This is something that should not be flying under the radar, especially as real estate assessments upticked very noticeably with what we got in our mailboxes just weeks ago. A lot I want to cover on the program. I want to remind viewers and listeners that Jim Hingeley, the Albemarle County Commonwealth attorney, is scheduled for Wednesday, March 5th here on the I Love CVille Show. I'm going to weave Judah Wickower in through a studio camera and two-shot. And before we get to our good friends at Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, I'm going to ask you, Judah, which headline do you find most intriguing and why today?
The headline I'm most intrigued by, I think, is the question of what was behind Craig Kent's resignation. Was it planned? Does it give Ryan time to think? Ryan is clearly in a pickle, and he's got one report that apparently has been redacted to the point where it's illegible, and another one that seems to have led to the resignation of Craig Kent. And I'm especially curious if we, the taxpayers who have paid for those reports, will get a chance to see them.
Amen. Let's, if you could, frame the two shots so they're even. A little more balance on the two-shot optics, if we can. We should be all up at arms, all angry, if we do not have an opportunity to see the investigative report, the independent investigation that looked with the benefit of hindsight what UVA did well or did not do well as it applied to the 3 murdered Virginia football players. If the community and taxpayers do not see that report, that is a travesty, and that is an indictment on transparency, and that is a tarnish on the UVA brand. And here we're on the cusp, and on the cusp, or smack dab in the middle of it, of a second investigative report as it applies to UVA Health and its hospital. There's two reports that clearly highlight wrongdoing to a certain level. Wrongdoing as it applies to the murder of 3 football players and the injury of 2 other UVA students, and wrongdoing as it applies to phony billing, exploiting sick and dying patients at UVA Health, and the doctoring, the changing of medical charts to maintain performance standards and national and regional rankings. There's 2 reports that are out there. One of the reports led to Craig Kent's firing. It was a report presented Tuesday to the Board of Visitors, and immediately after that presentation, the CEO of UVA Health resigned. The other report, the 3 football players that were murdered, that report's been in the mix for damn near close to 2 years here. And we haven't seen that yet. So we'll talk about that on today's program. I want to give some love to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, Judah. If we could put that on screen. Online at charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com. Charlottesville Sanitary Supply is located on East High Street. John and Andrew Vermillion run an fantastic business, honest business, above-board business, a business based on communication and servicing clients and communicative ways. I am impressed with this 3-generation family business, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. Excuse me as I'm dealing with something in my throat here. Feel perfectly fine. First headline, if you could put that lower third on screen. In fact, read the lower third to the viewer and listener, if you could, please, sir.
Should Nyeem Hill have caused a lockdown?
I'm seeing this all over social media now. In particular, from the very left-leaning side, beyond liberal, the activist portion of our community that said Nyeem Hill, the 19-year-old with the criminal history that's longer than a CVS receipt, should not have caused a lockdown of UVA, should not have caused a shelter in place of the Lewis Mountain neighborhood, and should not have done a day's worth of emotional damage to UVA students, Albemarle Countyans, and Charlottesvillians alike. Some have called this police theater. And interestingly, with this topic, I think Judah Wickhauer is in this camp. I'm surprised to hear that this is going to be your take. You, and I don't want to speak for you, we'll have a friendly back and forth that makes for fantastic fodder for a talk show. You believe Nyeem Hill should not have caused a lockdown of UVA, am I right? And should not have caused a shelter in place for the Lewis Mountain neighborhood, and should not have consumed the social media channels of police departments that serve Charlottesville, Albemarle, and Central Virginia. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, ideally, he wouldn't have been released in last December while an investigation was ongoing into potentially, not potentially, but alleged violent actions while in jail. But I'm not sure. Depending on the timeline, like, I don't know that it was really necessary. Did they honestly think that it was necessary?
Viewers and listeners, what are your thoughts? Put them in the feed. William McChesney, Carol Thorpe, put them in the feed. I'll relay them live on air. Should Nyeem Hill have caused a lockdown of the University of Virginia, a shelter in place for the surrounding neighborhoods and streets, and the paralysis of quality of life for a 24-hour period and longer of Albemarle County, the city of Charlottesville, and much of Central Virginia? My stance on this is absolutely he should have caused a lockdown. Absolutely he should have caused a shelter in place. Absolutely. We have a 19-year-old that has charges hanging over his head, a 19-year-old that is a convicted felon with gang ties and affiliations, a 19-year-old that has shown significant disregard for the law, someone who is willing, while his Chevy Impala is in drive, is actually moving, to jump out of the driver's side of the car, outside of the car while the vehicle is moving. It's still in drive. Allow his car, the Chevy Impala, to wreck into a state trooper and to crash into an innocent bystander's vehicle, to lead 4 different police departments, UVA, state troopers, Charlottesville, and Albemarle County, on a foot chase that lasted hours. He is still on the lam. He is desperate for his freedom, regardless if he had run yesterday or not. Let's say he had stopped with that state trooper, the state trooper who was trying to pull him over. Let's say he had stopped in the Fontaine Avenue area, and the state trooper had run his name and found, wow, you got charges hanging over your head. You beat the bejeebus along with 2 other people of another inmate in jail. You broke his orbital bone, right? You crushed his skull, basically. You got to go back to jail, right? If it had played out that way, right, he would have faced significant time behind bars, especially with his criminal history. When the guy gets out and runs because of it, he knows, that's an indication, he knows that he faces time in the slammer, significant time in the slammer. If he had stayed at that state trooper stop and not run, if he had stayed, we could have made an argument that either he wanted to do the right thing or he did not know that he was facing charges. But the fact that he ran from that state trooper who tried to stop him around Fontaine Avenue and chased him from Charlottesville and into Albemarle County, a chase that ended up around the Ivy Road area, that means he knew he was facing trouble. He was facing time in the slammer and a confiscation of his freedom. This community has gone through so much recently with the murder of the football players, with August 11th, with August 12th, with Justin Barbour killing 2 people in Crozet in front of the Harris Theater, with a murder on the Water Street parking garage about a month ago, that not choosing to lock down or shelter in place would have been reckless. Safe than sorry is the phrase.
Better safe than sorry.
Right? Mm-hmm. Now, some folks are making this about race, that if he wasn't a black man, that a lockdown wouldn't have happened. I don't buy that either. I don't make this about race. I make this about criminal history. In particular, criminal history as it's associated with guns and violence. That's what I make it about. You believe, and I'll listen to learn because I want to learn, and then comments are coming in quickly, that perhaps the lockdown, do you believe it was police theater?
No, I don't think it was theater per se, but it doesn't make anyone involved look good. And
how so? Out of curiosity.
Because they didn't find him.
Because he escaped?
Because they spent how many hours looking for one man?
Stacey Baker Patty, Caitlin Person, and Janice Boyce Trevelyan. I'll get to your comments here in a matter of moments. Here's a very pointed question. Let's say, hypothetically, Judah was right. Let's say they do lock down UVA and shelter in place Lewis Mountain and interrupt everyone's days and cause emotional paralysis for most of the community. And he's caught and still not on the lam. Would your stance be different?
Say that again.
If they had caught him, would your stance be different?
Maybe. Not really. I mean, you've got how many police officers out looking for this guy? You told me that somebody told you they watched a police officer with a canine unit chasing after him.
One of the viewers and listeners of our talk show put in the comments section of the I Love CVille show 2 days ago while this was going on that she lives in the Lewis Mountain neighborhood, and while looking out one of the windows of her house in her yard, she saw Nyeem Hill chased by police in her yard.
I feel like they made this guy out to be more of a terror than he was, and they didn't catch him anyways.
So was the better, in your eyes, was the better response when the state trooper is trying to pull him over on Fontaine Avenue, and when he evades and eludes the police in the Chevy Impala in a chase that gets to Ivy Road? Are you of the impression when Nyeem Hill is in his Chevy Impala and the car is still moving, he opens the driver door, jumps out of the driver door as the Impala is still in drive, as it's crashing into a state trooper and another vehicle, that the trooper and other police associated with this call should have let him run and hope to find him later with the help of the sheriff's office or some other department that chase fugitives that are on the run? Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, and
Wow.
I may be wrong here.
Wow.
But there's a reason why oftentimes cops don't engage in high-speed chases anymore, because very often what ends up happening is people get hurt. We have flock. Why not use it? And I know some people think that it's a way of it's like Big Brother watching everything you do out on the streets, but that's not the way it works. It captures license plates, and it can track movement. So after the fact, you can go and see where the car went and try to follow a person that way. It's not like somebody's sitting in a control booth talking to the cops saying he's turning left, he's turning right. It doesn't work that way. But it's there for a reason, and this is exactly that reason: to avoid high-speed chases, to avoid potentially putting innocent people in danger because someone is now desperate.
Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. We have two very different opinions here. We're having a conversation, Judah and I, and would like for you to join in on that conversation. Nyeem Hill, his escape or his run from the state trooper and a routine traffic stop tied to a dead inspection sticker. Then his choice to run from the police on foot. Should that have yielded a lockdown of UVA, a shelter in place of Lewis Mountain, and the paralysis of our quality of life and the fear and emotional trauma that comes with a manhunt in your community? Comments are coming in quickly. Caitlin Person says, better safe than sorry, Judah.
That's fair.
Janice Boyce Trevelyan says, as you're putting photos on stream, Janice Boyce Trevelyan, I think caution was the better step. If he had taken someone hostage or a fight had happened, children, students, or general public may have been harmed. The police would have been in big, big trouble then. And coming on the heels of the 3 deaths in Crozet, I think it was the right move.
That's fair.
Stacy Baker Patty says, they are damned if they do, damned if they don't. If something would have happened, for example, shots fired, there was no lockdown, can you imagine the outcry of the failure to protect the community? This guy is desperate. Who knows what he would do? I very much concur with those comments right there. TJ Stargill, Vanessa Parkhill, Carol Thorpe, thoughts on this topic. Carol Thorpe says, I think the lockdown was as much to clear the streets to more quickly find him as it was to protect the populace indoors. Having lockdown, I agree, it doesn't look good that Hill was not captured. Carol Thorpe makes a great point there. Her photo on screen, if it's not on screen. If Hill had been captured as a result of the lockdown, yesterday and today, we applaud and salute and praise the police. Am I right? Sure. Even Judah says yes on that. So with Judah saying yes on that, that logic means the lockdown is the right choice. Locking down, if it had yielded a capture, was the right move. Do the authorities look a bit, what's the word here? 4 police departments not capturing a guy that's on foot, running from German Shepherds, helicopters, drones, and dozens of officers and vehicles? I mean, I said yesterday, is this guy Carl Lewis? Is this guy Michael Johnson with gold cleats and a gold medal around his neck? Is he Dr. Richard Kimball? Did he change outfits? I mean, they had a photo of him and they have his mugshot. And people were in buildings inside. How did this man get away?
Yeah.
Everyone's wondering that question. He's still gone. Where is he? My wife made the comment, does he have a cell phone on his person? Can't they ping his phone to track him? Greg was wondering the same, right? She made this comment this morning. He's running around the University of Virginia, which is probably the area in Charlottesville and Albemarle County that has the most cameras on buildings because of safety of students. Of any place to run around and try to escape the police in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, probably around UVA is the most difficult. UVA has its own police force. Mm-hmm. A police force specific for this area. Cameras everywhere. And then there was additional police forces coming to help the university police force. How did this man escape? How was the man allowed out of jail in the first place?
Even better question.
Chief Kotches had that question. Mm-hmm. Asked that question himself. On the record, Chief Kotches asked that question. I think it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback. I think it's also easy. The most popular guy on a football field when an offense is struggling is the second string quarterback. It's always easy to play Monday morning quarterback. Mm-hmm. Locking down and sheltering in place and having police cruisers drive around the city and the urban ring with loudspeakers instructing people to go inside and to stay away from windows was the right move. My opinion. I'm not discounting your opinion. Mm-hmm. In any case. And if he had been caught, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Stacey Baker Patty. And for all these things, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, but in the moment you have to make the best decisions of what info you have. Maria Marshall Barnes, thank you for watching the program. Juan Sarmiento goes on Judas' side. What if he had a weapon and hurt someone that he thought was impeding his escape? Yeah. I can imagine what people would have said if an innocent bystander was killed or hurt. Mm-hmm. So, Juan, are you of the mindset that when he jumped out of a Chevy Impala while it was still in drive and moving, after it had crashed into a state trooper cruiser and into an innocent bystander's car, that when he was running away from the scene, he should have just been let go and a plan should have been put in place later to try to track him down? Is that what the suggestion is?
I mean, that's Monday quarterbacking, yeah. I don't know how long it was between when those lights came on behind him to when he decided to jump out of the car.
Wait, hold on. I don't understand that. Be very clear with what you said?
I don't know how long it was between when the lights came on.
Fontaine Avenue to Ivy Road. You know where Fontaine Avenue is, and you know where Ivy Road. Going from Fontaine Avenue to Ivy Road does not take a couple of seconds.
So they were chasing him.
Obviously, they were. It was a state trooper chasing a Chevy Impala from Fontaine Avenue to Ivy Road, and if they're chasing him, the lights are on.
So. And what that says is that he didn't immediately jump out of the car, meaning if they hadn't been chasing him, he may have just gone about his way, and they could have gone to the flock cameras and tracked where the car went and tracked him down without the need for a lockdown. But because they chased him, he eventually jumped out of the car, and then they started chasing him more. And you see where I'm going with this.
Deep Throat makes this comment, which is a really good comment. The activist that is primarily leading the tarnish of police decision-making is is Matthew Gillikin on Facebook.
Okay.
And he's saying that this is police theater and that a lockdown should never have happened. And had it been someone of a different skin tone, this would not have been the case, a lockdown. But he is also the person that is leading the charge, one of them in our community, against the flock camera usage.
That's too bad.
So I need to understand, if you're against lockdown and shelter in place, what were the alternative measures to try to track this alleged criminal on the run?
I just told you. If they hadn't chased him, he wouldn't have jumped out of his car. They could have used the flock system, which is now in place.
That's my point.
For just this purpose.
My point is this.
Okay.
If Gillikin is saying, don't chase him, don't lock down, what is the next policing method to track him down? It's the flock cameras. Yeah. So you cannot be anti-chase and anti-lockdown and anti-flock cameras, because you'll never catch this person, right?
Right.
If you're anti-chasing the guy and anti-locking down the community to find the guy, you cannot also be anti-flock cameras.
I'm not anti-flock.
No, I'm highlighting the activist
Gillikin,
that is leading the charge here on hating on police tactics. Mm-hmm. And what I am doing on this talk show, on this platform, is backing the police tactics, the chase, the lockdown, and the hunt, while questioning how they did not catch him. And any police officer that I think that watches and listens to this program hears my stance on this, is probably like he's being pretty damn fair with us here. I would think if Chief Kochis heard what I just said, or Chief Longo, or Colonel Reeves heard what I said here, I'm backing you chasing him from Fontaine to Ivy Road. I am backing you locking down UVA and sheltering in place the surrounding areas. I am backing you driving around in those areas with a bullhorn, screaming in the bullhorn that you should not be by the windows, you should be in the house, and you should stay down. I am backing your messaging with Twitter on sheltering in place in your communication. However, I am questioning how 4 departments did not catch the person who is on foot when they have helicopters, dogs, and drones. And I'm also questioning the messaging at the end of this hunt that said he is vaguely out of the area. Where many of us asked, does out of the area mean Belmont? Does out of the area mean Culpeper? Does it mean Greene? Does it mean Earlysville? Does it mean Buckingham?
And why aren't you locking down those areas?
If he was out of the area, why aren't lockdowns happening there? Does out of the area mean we don't know where he is? And because it's been so long, it's probably to believe we don't know where he is, right?
Yeah. Like,
did the guy take the trolley from Bonnycastle Circle, or from Newcomb Hall, or the McIntyre School of Commerce? And did he hop on the trolley to the bus station and then get on a Greyhound to Richmond? Like, what happened here?
We don't know, but guess what you can't use to follow him now?
What's that?
The flock cameras.
Well, because he's out of the area?
Because he's not in the car.
Do we know that?
I mean, he's not in the car that we know he was driving.
Okay, he's not in the Chevy Impala.
He could be in any car.
Okay, but not in the Chevy Impala.
Which doesn't help.
Fair.
Which makes the flock cameras entirely useless.
Deep Throat says, so the activists should then say, yes, we should have flock cameras so we don't have to do high-speed chases. Interesting comment from John Blair. Jerry, I feel like I don't have enough information about the Hill lockdown. First, we don't know what the juvenile felony level offense was. I'm pretty sure we had some clarity on that. Second, was it violent? I'm pretty sure there was some clarity on that too. Second, he says, just how bad was the jailhouse fight? We do know how bad the jailhouse fight was.
Yeah.
That report is out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we've confirmed that Hill and 2 other men held down a 4th man and beat him so badly that basically his skull was crushed. Orbital bone was broken on his...
I believe we should categorize... I believe we should say alleged.
Okay.
He was... The attack took place 2 days after he was put in... He was officially started his sentence. He was released in December, and I believe the
victim refused to testify.
Yep. And
the guy who got his tail kicked, orbital bone broken, refused to testify.
And I don't fully understand this, but the prosecutor decided to...
Albemarle County Commonwealth's Attorney's Office said, our hands are a little bit tied here.
And so then they took it up, I believe they took it to a higher court, and an arrest warrant was released in the beginning of this month. And apparently they've been looking for him since.
He's been on the run, and they've been looking for him since. John also says this: third, I can't tell from media reports about the February indictments. What are the specific facts causing those indictments? He does say this, John does. Joe Plantania is a man that I have a lot of respect for. The fact that he went in 3 years in jail for a felon in possession and a possession charge makes me think, though I don't know due to the questions I have, that a manhunt may have been necessary.
That's fair too.
Katie on YouTube says this: not to mention, he's a violent offender who knows what he will do, especially when desperate. 100% my point on that. We've got a desperate person here, and a lot of minors and a lot of kids in place. Carol Thorpe, several years ago, we had a sizable number of activists in the city who claimed it should dissolve the police department and that the community could effectively police itself. She says, I'm curious if Mr. Gillikin is of a like mind. He was, Mr. Gillikin, one of the people leading the defund the police charge, actively pouring through the police budget, yearly budget, line by line, highlighting that this budget and what they're spending it on. This was during the defund the police movement. The defund the police movement, notice that movement has been defunded itself. That movement is almost no more. It's interesting when the folks that were in the high crime neighborhoods of the city, when asked about the defund the police movement, they said, no, we want the police actually policing our neighborhoods.
Yeah. And Chief Conscious has done a wonderful job putting that all in perspective. 100%.
100%. Former Mayor Nikia Walker today on her Facebook calling out Chief Conscious and his policing tactics, alleging racial profiling with his police tactics. Nikia Walker, the former mayor, on Facebook today.
Interesting.
Juan Sarmiento has this: when they realized who he was, they felt it was safer to instill the shelter in place. If it had just been a guy who was just afraid of getting in trouble and wasn't that violent of a person, then they probably would have not called for the shelter in place. All right, so I thought at first he was arguing on your side. He is, in fact, arguing on a very opposite side. And I respect your opinion, Jude. Don't get me wrong. And I love when we have very different opinions. I love the banter and I love the back and forth. I crave it. And it's certainly great for a talk show. Mm-hmm. Now, this is an interesting segue. What is the next headline if you put on screen here?
Next headline is, who is more dangerous, Nyeem Hill or Justin Barbour?
All right, this is a dynamic question. Justin Barbour is the 20-something-year-old Crozation that killed 2 people outside of a Harris Teeter less than 2 weeks ago, and had an arsenal of weapons at his disposal and was going to go on a mass murdering spree. That was his intention, right? He was then put down and killed by an off-duty law enforcement officer who used his personal weapon while coming out of the Harris Teeter to kill Justin Barbour. Mm-hmm. The Good Samaritan, not a Good Samaritan. I don't think it's a effing hero coming out of the Harris Teeter to kill this person. Who is more dangerous? Dead Justin Barbour alive Nyeem Hill on the run. I'll add a little bit more dynamic to the story. Justin Barbour, no criminal history. Zilch, zero, nada criminal history. Mental health red flags all over the place. Mental health red flags while having an arsenal of guns at his disposal. But no criminal history. Nyeem Hill, convicted felon. Gun offenses. Beat the bejeebus with some other people out of someone in jail, allegedly. Mm-hmm. Live streaming himself on a children's playground with what was what looked like, police say, an AR-15 and another pistol, literally putting it on Facebook that he has this.
Yeah.
While a convicted felon, he's doing this. On the lam, runs from police and somehow evades Richard Kimball's...
I don't think he was a convicted felon at the point that he was live streaming.
I think he absolutely was.
I thought he only had charges from when he was still minor.
The convicted felon, correct me if I'm wrong, viewers and listeners that are watching the program, happened when he was a minor. Viewers and listeners, offer some perspective on this. Memory's a steel trap over here. Believe it, very confident it was while he was a minor. Viewers and listeners, let me know if I'm right or wrong on that. Without getting into the weeds on that, as someone is going to offer some perspective on that, who is more dangerous? Justin Barbour or Nyeem Hill?
I would argue that Barbour is more dangerous, and I think I'm wrong about it. It says
pretty sure it happened while he was a minor.
At least in the Augusta Free Press, they say he was charged with possession of a firearm, blah blah blah, by a convicted felon.
Yeah.
So
happened as when he's a minor. The memory over here is. Go ahead.
I didn't know. It doesn't matter. I would say Barbour.
You say Barbour's more dangerous.
At this point, we don't even know if Nyeem had a weapon on him in the Impala, or while he was on the run.
Keep going. Make the argument.
I'm not sure what more I need to say. He was. We don't have any evidence that he was armed or dangerous, and at least not. Obviously, could be a dangerous person, but Barbour, the fact that I don't think anybody could know his frame of mind, and while his family may say that they went to ask for help, we're just guessing if they actually thought that he was going to go do something like this in the immediate future. So his actions were, I would say, far more erratic than Nyeem's, and far more dangerous as a result.
Okay. Viewers and listeners, your thoughts on that one. More dangerous to the community. The history of crime versus the history of mental illness. An individual who killed 2 people versus an individual who has killed nobody.
The unknown element is often the one to be more wary of. I said on yesterday's program, of the 3 protagonists that have driven the I Love CVille show's content, Dr. Craig Kent, Nyeem Hill. Antagonists.
Are they the protagonists here?
Is anyone going to make a movie for them? I don't know that they count as protagonists unless you're taking a look in their own mental mind states, how they see themselves.
Protagonist is the main character in a story.
Yeah.
The main character in the UVA health story is Craig Kent.
Okay. I mean, if
the main character, sure. The main character in the Manhunt story is Nyeem Hill. Protagonist doesn't mean good. It's the driver of plot, and the antagonist is the people that counter the driver of the plot and storyline. The protagonist of the UVA Health fraud and the medical billing change is Craig Kent. The antagonist of the Craig Kent is the 128 anonymous doctors.
That's fair, but it's
The
still an odd
protagonist
way
of
putting things.
the protagonist of the Nyeem Hill story is Nyeem Hill, and the antagonists are the police. And the protagonist of Justin Barbour, of the Crozet killer, is Justin Barbour, and the antagonist is the man who killed him. And we are now in the falling action, the denouement of Justin Barbour, and we are now beginning the falling action, the denouement of Craig Kent. We are nowhere near the climax and nowhere near the falling action, the denouement of Nyeem Hill. Nowhere near it. We are still in the rising action of Nyeem Hill. Craig Kent, we may be at the climax, and the climax at Craig Kent, maybe the true climax of Craig Kent, the Craig Kent saga, is does the dean, Melina Kibbe, get included in this, and how much does this quicksand Jim Ryan? Because Craig Kent's resignation, in my opinion, buys Jim Ryan grace and time. And if anything, Jim Ryan has utilized the time solution or the tool of time to try to buy himself grace. And we've seen Jim Ryan use the tool of time or the solution of time to buy himself grace with the release of the murder report, the investigation with the 3 football players. That report's taken, a couple of years to come out, basically? And the report that came out was redacted all get out. We're talking Sharpied everything, where one of the moms of the fallen football players said this report's BS. I'm insulted by this. I just want to know what happened to my son the day he died.
Yeah.
She was appalled and insulted by the report. And I'm going to tell you right now, Jim Ryan is going to use the same tool of time with Craig Kent and this law firm's investigation of fraud and medical. I mean, Jesus, this investigative report, when it applies to UVA Health, is the most damning piece of evidence maybe in the history of the University of Virginia. Exponentially more damning than Christopher Jones's investigative report, the murder of the 3 football players. Mm-hmm. That was malpractice and mishandled, no doubt. Red flags everywhere.
Yeah.
Guy with mental health, bullied, threatening, previous issues with the laws that applies to guns, multiple people telling UVA he's got a gun on his person and he's planning on doing something. There's without question a lawsuit there. Mm-hmm. Without question. But the UVA Health thing is institutional and systemic fraud. Institutional and systemic exploitation of dying and sick people, their most vulnerable states of life. And it's
more wide-reaching.
And it's basically like a RICO case. You're basically looking at something that is like, I mean, you're looking at something that is like, what's RICO stand for? Racketeer influence and corrupt organization. You're looking at a head honcho telling underlings to commit crimes and how to do it and who to do it to. I mean, it's the same thing where a drug kingpin tells underlings, take this addictive substance, sell it for this, sell it to the most vulnerable people in the world, and use violence at any means necessary to protect your territory and to maintain the profits that are coming in. Right? That's what a drug kingpin does. I got a product to sell, I got a market, and I want to get my drugs to this market by any means necessary, and if anyone intrudes on my territory, I want you to use violence to protect the territory we sell our commodity on and within. It's basically what we saw with Dr. Craig Kent, except the difference is it's white collar. It's done with Mont Blancs and Louis Vuittons and Joseph A. Banks and Brooks Brothers and lab coats and stethoscopes and credit cards and monthly payments done through my chart. Huge difference. It's not done through, Jack and Big Louie with a crowbar to the knees, or the hammer to the hand, or the sawed-off shotgun out of an El Camino window as you're driving by the corner. Same type of enforcement. We're going to take your house if you don't pay us, even though what we're asking you to pay us is too much money. Even though we know what we're asking you to pay us is too much money. Even though we know you are in your most vulnerable state you've ever been. You're basically dying. You have cancer. You have heart issues. You have liver issues. You have colon issues. You may not be clear thinking. Pay us what we tell you to pay, even though it's too much money. And if you don't do this, we're going to take your house. We're going to put a lien on your assets. And you're going to pay us with that credit card over there on the 22% interest that it accrues through this MyChart system that is so difficult to navigate, you don't know what the individual line items are for. I told the story in this talk show. Our 2-year-old son went and had a clogged tear duct at UVA Children's Hospital. And it was a surgery that we basically had to take our 2-year-old to, was it the Battle building? And our 2-year-old, who was like 22 pounds, 21 pounds, was put in a medical gown, taken from us as we're waiting in the waiting room. And as we're called to go check on our 2-year-old, we're in the room as he's taken away from us on a stretcher, a kid's stretcher, looking back over the shoulder as a nurse wheels him away from us, crying, screaming my wife's name, Mommy, as she's bawling. And then right after he's taken away from us, we get called into a payment room that is the size of our closet at home, where someone that's doing payables and receivables on the other side of a desk with my wife crying, my arms wrapped around us. All right, you have to pay for this right now. This is how much you owe us. $4,100 some dollars. And then I said to her, is this all we owe you? She says, oh, this will cover it according to your insurance. And then we get a bill weeks later in the mail for an additional $1,600, despite her telling us this is all that we owed her. 12 minutes after, they took our 2-year-old son in a hospital gown that he was drowning in. It was so large, while he was bawling his eyes out as my wife is crying.
Yeah,
that is synonymous with Louis and the crowbar to the knees, or the sawed-off shotgun outside of out of a Camino, shooting up a drive-by shooting a corner to maintain territory in the drug trade. Same type of bullying tactic and enforcement tactic. I want your money. I'm going to exploit the fact that you're in your most vulnerable state right now to get it. And can you imagine if somebody was dying of cancer or dying of some heart? Our kid, all he had was a clogged tear duct.
Yeah.
Insane. Kent, without question, the most dangerous of the three. Without question, the most dangerous of the three.
I agree.
Second most dangerous of the three, at this point, I'd say is Justin Barbour. He killed 2 people.
Yeah.
Hill has not killed anyone yet.
No.
Pray to God that's the case.
Amen.
Barbour's second most dangerous. Despite having no criminal history and despite being known in Crozet as the gentle giant. Mm-hmm. Third most dangerous, Hill. He's on the lam right now.
Yep.
The extent of what Hill has done is shattered the orbital bone of, allegedly, of another man who is in jail. Right?
And whatever he was charged with as a minor.
I'm pretty sure the reports have said, and correct me if I'm wrong, I will do some reconnaissance on that, was shooting up, using a gun to shoot up a place. And correct me if I'm wrong on that. I will do some digging and research, but the memory's a pretty one of the better assets there. We will do some reconnaissance. Mess. And a natural follow-up question to this, if you want to put that lower third on screen, did Craig Kent expect to resign on Tuesday? I don't think Craig Kent expected to resign on Tuesday.
I have to guess that most everybody in that room, when the report was shown to the Board of Visitors, was perhaps a bit blindsided by it.
I was told yesterday by an unnamed source, and then I verified this with 2 other unnamed sources. 3 unnamed sources have verified this with me. 3. That Kent was using staff at UVA Health to improve his digital brand online. When this story started breaking, had instructed staff in his corporate hierarchy to improve his digital brand online. I don't think his intention was to resign. I think the report was that damning.
It certainly appears that way.
I think the report is that damning, which speaks to a level of systemic and institutional corruption, exploitation, backroom dealing.
Basically what the 128 UVA Health employees accused him of.
Do you know what the definition of racketeering is?
I couldn't give you the exact
The exact definition of racketeering. What is the exact definition of racketeering? You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
A series of illegal activities that are organized to generate profit. I sincerely am asking this question to the viewers and listeners that are watching this program. And any activist that watches this program, and I highlighted this on yesterday's show, if anyone wants, I am saying of 3 people, Kent, Hill, and Barbour, who is the most dangerous? I'm saying it's the 60-something, salt, pepper-haired, white guy in the lab coat that's a doctor, has a stethoscope, leather satchel, Mont Blanc, Joseph A. Bank, Louis Vuitton, luxury vehicle, homeowner, is the most dangerous of the 3.
Yeah.
The white guy is the most dangerous of the 3.
He easily affected the most lives.
A series of illegal activities that are organized to generate profit. Explain to me how this is not racketeering. Racketeering is often disguised as a legitimate business deal. Someone help me?
I would argue that because the profit was not necessarily personal.
Okay, go ahead. I'll hear you out on that, and I'll push back on it. I know where you're going with this.
I'm just saying that perhaps that distinction puts him just the slightest bit outside of the actual definition of racketeering.
He got a 500,
and you make a very valid point. I'm not saying you're wrong.
He got a $500,000 raise recently, tied to performance of his health system.
That could be tied.
And his
to
health
it, so
system's performance is tied to, in one portion, billing, and a second portion, ranking and performance standards.
Yeah.
Okay, so the CEO of UVA Health, his position, how much of it is tied to billing money, generating revenue? How much of it is tied to national and regional rankings? Enough so that he told his underlings to bill fraudulently and to change medical charts. Mm-hmm. And if you did not do what I say, I'm going to leverage your job against you and the chance for promotion or the chance not to get a promotion, right? Unbelievable. Crazy story. Mm-hmm. How about this question? Of the 3 protagonists, Hill, Barbour, and Kent, which movie script has the best chance of being purchased and turned into a movie by MGM?
I could definitely see a Robin Cook style movie being made of malpractice and bullying and racketeering in a medical health system.
The late, great Gene Hackman passed away today. Don't know if you viewer and listener saw that. Found passed away at his home with his wife and his dog.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I saw that they don't think it's...
Authorities said that there's no foul play. I mean, that, leads me to believe carbon monoxide.
That's probably as good a guess as any.
What, one area, wife, dog, husband?
Right.
Okay. Gene Hackman would have played a mean Craig Kent. Gene Hackman as Craig Kent? MGM picks that up all day, every day, twice on Sunday. And before we get off this topic, and maybe we'll save the Albemarle County guys, this is the storyline that's flying under the radar because of Hill being on the lam and because of Craig Kent resigning. Is Kibbe next? Where is?
I think I remember reading someone saying that.
Where's Kibbe? The dean of the UVA School of Medicine. What is she? Is she part of the quicksand?
Who knows? She may have been able to. She may have kept her hands clear of enough evidence that there's nothing they can do about it.
Because she was directly mentioned in the anonymous 128 letter.
Yeah,
like specifically mentioned.
She and Craig Kent.
Right. So at this point, is Kent the straight up fall guy?
Like I said, we don't know what evidence she. Like I said, she may have. She may be clean on paper. You're saying that she did not talk to any of the lieutenants on the phone, or get snapped in any pictures with them in public, or did not get tracked with any text messages or correspondence online, and she used an insulated method of communication to diminish her exposure with all this? Are we writing the script?
I mean, and she.
I like it.
I need to go get somebody else to communicate this message to Louis over there, who's got the crowbar, and to Tyrone over there, who's got the sawed-off shotgun in the El Camino. I'm not going to tell him to do this. You tell him to do this. Then you tell little Johnny to do this. Then you tell Big Steve to do this, and make sure the message gets passed to them. Is that what you're saying?
Something along those lines.
That's what you're saying, yeah.
Something a little bit like that.
That maybe she knew how to play the game a little bit better? That she understood the concept of hedging exposure and insulation?
Or maybe most of the interaction, maybe most of the actual directives came from Craig Kent, but she was, was there discussing the actions with him.
All right.
Behind the scenes.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
In which case, she ends up, like I said, having not much in the way of evidence showing her involvement. And so, Craig Kent becomes the fall guy because there's just not enough to point a finger at her. Aside from... So
you're basically saying ignorance of the law is an excuse?
No, that's not what I said at all.
I'm ignorant of what's happening in my school. I'm the dean of the school here, dean of medicine. I'm just going to do the three monkeys, cover my ears, cover my eyes, and cover my mouth. I don't know what's going on here in the UVA School of Medicine.
You're alleging that she's...
You're basically saying that she has distanced herself from Kent enough that she's fine.
No, I didn't say she distanced herself from him. I just said she didn't leave any evidence.
If it's happening at her School of Medicine, and she's the dean of it.
Yeah.
And it's in her School of Medicine and that she's the dean of.
Yeah.
We're able to say that ignorance is...
I never said that. I'm not sure why you're bringing ignorance into this.
Well, how does the number two in command not know this is going on and stop it?
I never said she doesn't know what's going on.
How does the number two in command not stop it? How does the number two in command not waved the red flag?
Because she's in on it.
Okay. Then how is she not in the quicksand?
Because there's no evidence. I'm not sure what you're.
The evidence is she's the leader.
But okay, you say that.
I'm not saying it. It's her title.
But that's not admissible in court as culpability.
Okay. So, okay.
I'm just saying.
I think what it is, it's the tip of the iceberg and it's early.
That could be too.
That's what I think it is.
That could 100% be it.
I mean, the report just got presented on Tuesday.
We don't know what's in the report.
It hasn't even been 48 hours.
Exactly.
And then the really interesting question is, how much grace does this buy Jim Ryan?
How much time does it buy him?
There you go.
And how much gets redacted from that report?
And how much of this report is funded by taxpayers? I would imagine it's all of it. It's a public university.
Yeah. I don't think UVA is paying for any of this.
So we have two reports that we're paying for that we're not getting any information on.
One of them cost $1.5 million.
The report on the 3 football players who were murdered. 2 others injured.
How much does this one cost?
I would imagine pretty expensive.
No doubt. And we're paying for it.
And now we got a mother of one of the 3 murdered football players saying, I just want closure, and UVA won't give it to me. So how do you talk about Jeff Richardson trying to raise the real estate tax rate 4 cents in Albemarle County at the same time that real estate assessments have spiked noticeably for homeowners? All in the namesake of what activists are calling housing affordability. Explain to me how housing affordability, increased special assessments, and increased real estate tax rates all can swim in the same shallowed pool.
And be called housing affordability.
The Friday edition of the I Love CVille Show, to be determined. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Today's the Thursday edition of the I Love CVille Show. For Judah Wickower, who did a great job, my name is Jerry Miller.